So great to be with everyone. I'm taken back to a time in my life when I was in my early 40s, and it was a Sunday morning, and I was standing at the kitchen window, still in my bathrobe. The dishes were in the sink. And I was feeling kind of angry and going, how did I get myself here? How did this happen? I had already gone through one divorce and had just finished my second divorce. And I was in the house that would soon not be my house anymore. I had my own business, which was pretty successful. I was a real estate broker and I was doing well, but here it was Sunday. And as I looked out the window, once again, I realized I got to get up, I got to get dressed, clean the dishes, and go get my car, pull some real estate signs out of the trunk and sit on somebody else's house all afternoon while my ex-husband takes my kids to the beach. It was really just, it didn't seem like things were working out the way I thought they would. At any rate, my daughter was sitting over at the kitchen table, and I walked over and I peered down. She was drawing on a great big piece of paper, and I peered down, and she had drawn this little purple flower up in the corner of her paper. And I was being a dutiful mother, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. And she looked up at me and it's like, I don't like it, Mom. I want a fresh start. And she pulled the paper away, and I was kind of surprised because it was a really big piece of paper. And there was just this little tiny purple flower in the corner. I thought there's plenty of room. And she said, no, Mom, Mrs. Paddock says we always get a fresh start. Well, Mrs. Paddock was her kindergarten teacher. And right then and there, I went, I think Mrs. Paddock has something to teach me about my life. A fresh start seemed like exactly what I needed. I was just doing same old, same old. And it happened for me not too long after that. I have to admit, I already was sober, but I was attending meetings pretty regularly because my life was really a mess and I needed all the help I could get. I would go to women's meetings, and there was this one woman, her name was Anne, and she just seemed so calm. I thought, I want what you have, Anne. And one day in coffee, I went up to her and I said, whatever you're doing, I want some of it. And she said, why don't you come with me on Sunday? I go to this church. It's not really very religious. It's kind of like spiritual, but not religious. And so that Sunday I went with her, and along with her was an elder woman that she often took to church with her. And I have to say, I sat in that place, and at some point near the end of the service, I had this realization. They were talking about things that were important to me in my life, helping me figure out things that were going on in my marriage that wasn't anymore, and dealing with my children as a single mom, dealing with a business, and looking to have to pay another mortgage just on my own this time. It was giving me a lot of hope. And also, I just had this feeling like, I think I've come home. We went into this very quiet meditation. It was really powerful. Well, I have to say, that was the beginning 30 years ago that launched me on a huge path of spirituality. And for me, my fresh start, the fresh start for me was all about my spiritual growth and a spiritual journey. I'd always been one of those people, I don't know about you, but one of those people with stacks of books next to my bed. I was reading them all the time. And I remember one of them, it was Wayne Dyer. He had a book, and it was, there's a spiritual solution to every problem. And what started happening for me over time, as I became more involved in trying to understand what was literally going on inside of me, instead of trying to manage my husband or manage my kids or struggle in a business that didn't really seem to fit me, I started to begin to see things about my life that I hadn't been aware of before. And my spiritual life literally took off. Not only did I become a spiritual teacher, I went and got a doctorate in ministry with Matthew Fox, who's sort of a renegade, and it was in the reinvention of work, bringing spirituality into the workplace. It took me 6 years to get it, but it was just a powerful experience for me. And it's where I kind of began to meet East and West in terms of spirituality. I started a church in Berkeley, California, which was, I kind of think I just wanted to have people around me that had the same kind of thought pattern, that were interested in metaphysics and interested in spirituality and just wanted to connect. So I started my own church. a crazy thing to do, but it was a beautiful experience for me. I became a minister. And then out of all of that, I discovered this wonderful school in India. And 14 years ago, I discovered it actually 15 years ago, December, 15 years ago, December, I discovered it. But I went the next year, the next March, and I've been there 20 times. It's been just an amazing experience for me. And what I want to say to you is, I want to bring to you my 30 years experience of diving into spirituality and really seeing how it can transform your life as it's transformed mine. I have to say, 30 years ago, I never imagined that I would be living the life I live. I was one of those people who had the constant chatterbox. I called her Diane. She was constantly telling me, you didn't do that right. What were you thinking when you said that? You should have done this. Constantly either pre-planning something, over-planning and over-managing to make myself so upset and nervous before it happened, or second-guessing myself and just telling me I wasn't good enough. When I think about that now, I think, who was that woman? She doesn't exist in my world anymore. I live in a state of calm, peace. I'm not frantic. Chaos was reigning before we got on here today. In case some of you didn't notice, there were like multiple Patricia Keels coming on. And we didn't really know what it was, but in my old me, Diane would have really been talking up a storm. In this case, it was just like, oh, let's see, what's the next thing to do? I've had a huge experience of calming down my mind. And that calm, peace, presence has really brought me a sense of being present to everything in my life. I have a fabulous partner that I just absolutely adore. My relationship with my kids is amazing. Even that second husband who used to send me emails in all caps, maybe some of you have that experience. He was always angry with me. After 25 years, we had a complete healing in our relationship, and I was able to be with him during the last couple of years of his dealing with cancer. And the whole family was there when he passed away. I mean, it was such a miracle. It's like my whole life is twisted around because of my relationship with my own spiritual life and the spiritual growth, not only of myself, but of others. So I really am so excited to be here. I really believe that we all have a spiritual well inside of us and that we can connect to this in powerful and extraordinary ways. And that's what I'd like to do with you today. So I'm going to start out with a few slides that I hope will kind of anchor us into a fresh start. And for me, a fresh start is all about basics, going back to basics. What I want to show you right here is a triangle that it was one of the first things that I learned when I was back in India, maybe 12 or 13 years ago. It was called the mystical triangle. And the triangle, it contains three things. It contains an arm of breath, an arm of mind, and an arm of what's called Kundalini. Well, Kundalini is, we can think of it as like our spiritual energy, the energy of spirit that moves through us and it moves through the universe. Well, what I like to do with my Fresh Start program is I like to have the mystical triangle meet Miss Paddock. Mrs. Paddock was the kindergarten teacher because I like to just make things really, really basic. So what I've done is I've translated these three sides of my triangle to be ABCs. A is awareness, B is for breath, and C is for our connection. So we're going to move into that today as I share with you. I invite you to have a little piece of paper if you'd like. We're going to be doing some exercises, and I'm going to be giving you a really powerful energy transmission at the end of our time. But I do want to follow up with the great presentation that Kendall gave, because clearly we're all here and we have the opportunity to be here because of COVID. So I want to give you a little roadmap of where we're going to go today. And basically, the roadmap is that we are going to be looking at the three sides of this triangle. We're going to be looking at A for awareness, B for breath, and C for connection. And just because I called my program Keys, Three Keys, I felt like I needed to have something that represented keys. And this is like the coolest little box that somebody gave me. I think I've had this box for maybe 28 years. It's a little tiny treasure chest and has a tiny little key. And the cool thing about what's in this box is it's filled with angel cards. It's filled with daily cards. And every single day I used to draw one of these cards. So I'm just going to see what comes up for today. Surrender. How's that? This is
Yes.
for all of you. Surrender. Anyway, enthusiasm's on top up there too. I'm always very enthusiastic.
Woo.
Anyway, I just wanted to share that that's one of the keys for me, is being kind of present to the serendipity of the universe. I think it's really important for us to be open to that. So that's kind of what's going to happen as I'm sharing with you today. We're going to be focused on all three of these parts of the triangle: awareness, breath, and connection. But because I don't have like a month to be with you, we're going to focus more in terms of breath, because I want to really give you some tools and some things that will support you as you move in your own spiritual journey. So as we begin, I want to look at awareness. Now, my teacher says awareness is the first step and the last step. Awareness is the first step and the last step. And I think awareness is such a powerful thing, because when we're in a state of awareness, we're able to be more accepting of what's present in our lives. When we're in a state of awareness, we're able to be more accountable about what's showing up, what's going on inside of us moment to moment. And we're able to be more aware and accountable for what's happening in the world, like how we're showing up with the words that we're speaking, the actions we're taking. We're also, when we're in awareness, not only about ourselves, we're in awareness about the other as well. We're also, when we're in awareness, we can be in this incredible place of appreciation, where we can appreciate the matrix that is part of the universe that allows us to live the life that we live in this moment. We can have that sense of appreciation and gratitude when we're in a state of awareness. Now, this is something that, if we were doing a longer course, that we would really go into this. And I've had a course that I've taught over time called The Power of the Beautiful State, which is all about taking us into a state of calm, connected, peaceful consciousness, and how we can become aware when we're not in those states, which I think, Kendall did a great job of showing us in terms of her presentation, how often fear will take us into these stressful states of consciousness. But there's a teaching around this that I'd like to share with you just briefly. And again, this won't be the focus of my talk, but I just want to give you this information because I think it's an important awareness that we have. When we're looking at what is going on underneath the surface, because that's what the awareness is all about. It's about what's going on underneath. When we're looking at what's going on under the surface, thoughts are happening all the time, and they tell us 80% of our thoughts are just repetitive thoughts. We're thinking the same thing over and over and over again. And you can imagine that for yourself. Some of the things you put on your T chart were thoughts that you're thinking over and over and over again. And what happens is when these thought forms are coming into our awareness, they're coming into consciousness, they're activating the emotional field. They're just like Kendall was showing, they're activating pieces of the brain, and they're causing us to feel certain emotions. Some of those emotions might be really happy, like I've been really planning with Kendall for this event, and I've been so excited. It's been really, I've had a lot of joy about it. I haven't had fear about it. I've just had joy because I want to be able to share with you some of these things and to meet new people, new women that I've never connected with before. So for me, that thought of this event has brought about kind of an emotion, a bubbling up of happiness and joy, and an expectation of something wonderful happening. Those emotions, now for me, joy is one. For somebody else, it might be, I'm really concerned about COVID. I don't know what's happening with my family. It might be an emotion that's making them feel sad. Maybe there's been loss. I know that's true for some of my friends. They've lost family members, or there are people they know that are sick. And so the emotional field could be one of sadness, could be one of anger. There's a lot of that happening in our collective, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of chaos, basically. And what happens is when that state, that emotional state, becomes kind of embedded within us, it develops what we could call like a temperament. And people where you think, oh, he's kind of moody. Or, she's kind of flighty, or that person's always anger. I don't really like to connect with them because I'm always like, I kind of want to walk the other side of the street because I feel their temperament. So this is part of the pattern that happens within us. And when we can be aware of this, when we have this awareness about what's going on, whether you're aware at the level of the thought you're thinking, or you're aware of the emotional field and you see how it becomes kind of a habitual thing for you, it's that quality of the temperament or the state of consciousness that we're carrying, this level of consciousness that is inside of us, that becomes the initiation for the responses we have in the world. And when I say responses, I'm talking about the words we speak or don't speak, the way we engage with the world, our actions. It all is based on this habitual state that we carry around, or the temperament that we have. So this is an important thing when we're looking at awareness for us to be tuned into. And I'd like to actually take us through a little practice right now, because there's a way for us to use this awareness and to literally, within 3 minutes, I'm going to give you a 3-minute practice, within 3 minutes, to shift what's going on inside of you. In order to do this, I'm going to have to move to a little B, even though we're still in A, because I'm going to have you practice what's called a conscious breath. Now, I'm defining a conscious breath as a breath that is a little bit longer in the exhalation than the inhalation. And what happens here is, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the B's, because we're going to really focus a little bit more on breath. But when we get to this place where our breath is a little bit longer, it begins to slow not only the body down, but it starts to slow the mind down. So I'm going to ask you to do that with me. We're going to be moving into a very powerful meditation. I like to call it the 911 meditation, kind of like, it's emergency, I'm feeling stressed, I need this, I need something to do, and it's only going to take 3 minutes. The cool thing about it is when you find yourself in one of those stressful emotional states, and again, it might be one of those things that you wrote in the chat with Kendall, something that you're feeling around the COVID situation, around your family, around your own life. I'm going to just ask you to pull into one of those experiences. And what we're going to be doing is a very, very short meditation. I'm going to ask you to do a few things. I'm going to have you do 3 conscious breaths. I'm going to ask you to bring awareness to whatever that emotion is as it arises. And for some of us, we don't have a good idea of naming emotions, but just do the best you can. It might even just be that it's fear, and that's okay too. Then we're going to ask you, what's the direction of your thinking that's causing this emotion? Is it something in the past? Or are you thinking about something like you're holding a resentment, you're angry at someone, and you don't want to have that conversation? That would be my thoughts in the past, and it's bringing me into the present. Or maybe you're worried about something that's going to happen in the future. I know people have said they're worried about their finances. Could be, will I have enough money? For me, I'm 73 years old. I'm thinking, will I have enough money? Because I think I'm going to live to be really, really old. If I get caught in that could be a worrying about the future. So you're going to be looking at the kind of the passage of your thoughts. And then I'm going to ask you to imagine a tiny flame right here in between your eyebrows. And you're going to be bringing that flame back into the middle of your head, right? Like straight back into the middle of your head. So you guys ready to do this with me? Ready to do a little meditation? Some of you who've been doing morning meditations with me and have known me for a while are very familiar with this. And for you, we often call it the serene mind meditation. But we're going to be calling it 911 today. And I'm going to invite you all first to please close your eyes. Just gently close your eyes. And if someone would let me know that you could hear the sound in the chat, that would be good. I want to make sure that there's no, or just thumbs up. Martha gave me a thumbs up. You can hear the chat. Thank you. Beautiful. So as you close your eyes, I invite you to take 3 conscious breaths. Inhaling through the nose, slowly exhaling. And again, inhaling and slowly exhaling. And one more breath, inhaling and exhaling. And now bring into your awareness the particular emotion that you're experiencing right now. Feel the subtle quality of that emotion. If you can't identify it, you might even feel where it is in your body. There's a sensation in the body. And as you identify this emotion, take a look in the movement of your thoughts. Are you bringing something from the past? Focusing on the past. Or are you imagining something in the future? Or are you simply in the present moment? Just notice, not need to change anything. And now bring your attention to that space between your eyebrows. And visualize or feel a tiny flame in your eyebrow center. And as you visualize or feel that flame, slowly bring that flame back until it's sitting in the center of your head. And focus on the flame in the center of your head for a few moments. And when you're ready, you can bring a gentle smile to your lips and slowly open your eyes. So I love it if someone would put in the chat what your experience was.
Patricia, would you be able to, the computer just crashed, and instead of getting myself anxious, was it just 3 breaths in and hold the breath? I lost the whole thing, sorry.
So I'm going to give everyone a link that you can get this meditation.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Okay.
All times it just went off right when you started. Thank you, dear.
Yeah. Boot out and come back in is probably the best thing to do. Yeah. Great. Thanks for waiting till we were done. So I'd love it if anybody's willing to put into the chat what your experience was doing that meditation. Very simple meditation. Well, Patricia Keel felt enter common connection. One of the many Patricia Keels on our call. Impatience to calm, nice, calming, felt your body relax, beautiful. So literally what's happening is the brain can't hold both those states. And that place that you're taking that little flame to, it's a place in ancient India they call the Brahma Garbha, which means it's the womb, the birthplace of consciousness. It's where new thought forms are made, new neural networks are formed. So we can't hold these old patterns of stress and anxiety. I felt dense when I shifted the flame to crown to chakra. Beautiful connection. Nice. Thank you all for sharing. Totally beautiful. Happy to have you do that. So we're going to move now into the second part of our meditation and practice here. If I can figure out how to get rid of this little thing. There we go. There we go. Too many things on my screen. We're going to move into the second B, which is for breath. And, you know, we all breathe all the time, don't we? We breathe all the time, but I think we don't think about breath. And one of the things I really have learned in terms of not only as my work grew as a minister and a spiritual teacher and a spiritual coach for people, a prayer partner for people, I learned how when we're in a stressed place and a stressed time in our life, we tend to breathe very, very shallowly. We breathe way up here, and it doesn't suit the body. And it certainly doesn't suit our triangle where breath and mind and spiritual energy can happen. Because what happens is when we're able to really connect in with the breath and literally slow down our breathing, not only does it quiet the mind, which is the experience we just had with the 911 meditation, but it literally raises the spiritual energy that we know is the Kundalini. And in this particular time, I don't have time to connect in with Kundalini. And, you know, I'd love to share more about that with you at some other time. It's interesting because I just did a class. It was a 3-hour class for a group of traders. They're called super traders. And these are people who are day traders. And you wouldn't think that somebody who is trading for money on a daily basis would be interested in their spiritual life. But these guys were, and there were a few women too, they were so excited to learn about these teachings, how they could shift their state of consciousness so they'd be able to make decisions about the trades that they're doing in the world from a place of calm connection. And that was a class that I did a lot of work on the Kundalini and teaching about that. So if people are interested, we could talk about that another time. What I'd like to do now is to really give you a few, what I think are really important tips about breath. One of the things that is super important about breath, and this is something that people in the East and all the ancients, the Hindu mystics and sages knew, that we need to move the breath through the entire body. And so it's very important when we're doing any sort of practice. And, you know, even sometimes I'm sitting and watching TV and I realize how slouched I am. Even sometimes when I'm doing a meditation, I'm not really sitting up straight. And when we're not sitting up straight, we're not allowing the breath to move fully through the body. And we're also not allowing the divine energy, that the Kundalini energy or the spiritual energy, to move from the base of the spine up to the crown of the head and literally go through the entire body. So what I'd like to share with you, I found this very cool slide, or actually I made the slide, but I found this very cool picture about balance. Isn't that cool? I thought that was so cool. I'm all about pink these days. Anyway, the thing is, if we can look at these 3 things around our breath, I think it can make a really big difference in terms of how we experience our inner energy, how we can activate our awareness. The first is our posture. And it's really important to keep your spine erect. And by saying that, I just want to invite you, even if you're sitting on a couch, I'm kind of on a little bit of a cushiony thing here, but notice the difference when your hips are kind of rolled back versus when your hips are moved forward and you're sitting like on the sits bones. Your spine feels very different. And you can do that without feeling stress. You just kind of tilt your hips forward a little bit and feel the difference in what the body feels like when you're sitting like that, a little bit forward. I'm not somebody who's easy to sit with my legs crisscross applesauce anymore. When I go to India, I'm usually able to do it, but I haven't been to India since last December. And so I haven't been sitting on the floor. That's a great way to really keep your spine erect if you're somebody who's able to do that. The second piece beyond posture is the pace of our breathing. Many of us are really, we allow our anxiety and the emotion of anxiety to drive our breath. And so this awareness, this conscious awareness of the pace of your breath, of being able to slow down your breathing, is a really important thing. If nothing else, if you slow down your breathing, I guarantee it will begin to quiet your mind. You could do a 1-minute meditation, and during that meditation, maybe take 5 inhalations and just slow down your exhalation. You will quiet your mind in 1 minute. I have to say, I'm not one of those people who thinks that you should sit on your cushion for 40 minutes, for an hour, for 2 hours. That's not my way. I really believe there's so many ways that we can connect ourselves to our spiritual nature and to all that is beyond ourselves with the power of the breath. So if we got our spine erect and our posture is straight and we're noticing the pace of our breathing, we're slowing down our breathing. The third piece is a really interesting piece, and that is the ability for us to follow the path of the breath. And again, this takes some inner awareness because the mind loves to wander. You know, even when you start your conscious breath, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to breathe slowly. And all of a sudden, the shopping list comes in, or all of a sudden something that you have to do comes in, or all of a sudden some judgment you have about, why is she talking about this? I thought this was going to be about chaos. The mind pulls in. So that trick of the mind is there. And if we can just simply then bring ourselves back to the breath, it's why oftentimes the path of the breath can easily be followed by using a kind of a trick of the mind, that each time you inhale, your mind, you say to yourself, inhaling now, exhaling now. So you're occupying your mind. It's like a little mantra for your mind. That's why people have a mantra. It's a way to occupy the mind. Inhaling now, exhaling now, inhaling now, exhaling now. Or an affirmation. People do that all the time. They create, I am joyful, I am healthy, I am happy, I am free. You can create your own thing. But again, it's a way to kind of capture the mind, like the mahout has the stick for the elephant, you know, the trunk of the mind wants to fly around, you grab onto something. It's another way. For some of us, we have a meditation every morning. We meditate at 8 o'clock California time. We use our fingers, and this is another way. And then the mind connects with the fingers and the breath. So it's a way to follow the path. And I want to share another thing that I think is kind of a cool thing about the path of the breath. You know how the moon affects the tides? I mean, I live in a place, there's a creek not far from me. And if I go for a walk, sometimes the creek will be totally empty. The creek empties out into San Francisco Bay, which goes out into the ocean. Other times of the day, the creek will be really high. And it's all dependent on the moon. The fluctuations of the moon are creating that tidal rhythm in and out of the creek. Well, think about your body for a minute. How much water is in your body? And how are you any different? How am I any different from the creek down the street? I'm in this sphere of the universe, this expanded energy field of the universe. So the interesting thing to be aware of is that in the same way the moon impacts the movement of the tides, the moon is also impacting the movement inside of our bodies. It's impacting the flux and the flow inside of our body. And one of the things they talked about in India was the idea that when we're breathing, there's always an alternate nostril breathing back and forth in the body. We're not thinking about it. We're not really aware of it. But throughout your day, you'll be breathing stronger through your right nostril or your left nostril. And, you know, I'm just going to ask you right now, like, put your hand under your nose and just notice which nostril is stronger. Take a couple breaths. Do you feel it? One is a little bit stronger than the other. And you might try that an hour from now and it might be a different nostril. So part of the teachings, the ancient Hindu teachings, are that there's literally a balancing that's happening within the brain because of the flow of the tidal flow and the influence of the moon and the influence of the sun. And what they tell us is that the energy that comes up through the left nostril is the lunar energy. It's the energy of the moon. And that also represents the feminine, the divine feminine. And when the energy is flowing strongly through that left nostril, if you were to close off your right nostril and just breathe through your left nostril, I'm going to reverse because I look different, but when you breathe through your right nostril, a left nostril, the energy is going to the right side of your brain. So that lunar energy or the divine feminine energy that's coming through that side of your nostril is activating the divine feminine or the energy of the right brain. The opposite is also true. If you close off your left nostril and breathe through your right nostril, you're activating the solar energy or the masculine energy of the sun, and that is activating the left brain. So in India, there are multiple incredible, great meditations where you alternate your left and right nostril, you hold your breath, and it's a way of literally energizing and activating these two parts of the brain. A super powerful thing for us to do. So these three aspects of your breath are really important for us to be aware of: our posture, the physical posture of the body, the pace that we would slow down, and also the path of your breath. And finally, one other little tip I want to give you about breathing is when we breathe in, especially breathing in through the nose, if you can imagine breathing down into your abdomen. When I teach little kids, I did a course for the Girl Scouts. And what I did was we talked about a belly breath. And we said, you imagine a balloon expanding in your belly. And it's the same kind of thing. When you breathe in, close your eyes for a moment and take a deep breath in through your nose and feel your abdomen expand. Notice how most of us just kind of stop at the chest, but allow it to go all the way in. And then maybe pull the abdomen back a little bit just to feel how that breath goes out of the body. Let's try that again. Inhaling in deeply through the nose, expanding the belly, and then contracting back, releasing the breath. So just a little reminder throughout the day, especially if you're finding yourself feeling anxiety, if there's chaos and confusion happening around you or in your head, in your consciousness, a way to bring yourself into that calm, peaceful place is to do a belly breath. Imagine your breath going into your belly and slowly exhaling. So hopefully these are three things that help you in your breath practice. And I'm going to be doing a 5-day, 5 ways from chaos to calm, a free challenge in January. And we're going to be doing 5 different breath meditations. I'm going to be sending these out to people. Also, you'll get the link for the Serene Mind practice. There's a little tiny URL link there, and I'll post it at the end of our time together too. But I thought it was important that you would be aware of it as we're looking at breath, because I'm going to be we'll be using 5 different really powerful breath techniques that will impact different areas of the body. And also we'll be doing some of the teachings on on awareness, and also C, connection, will be coming up in a minute to do that. So my link is tinyurl.com/5-day calm. And again, I'll have it posted later. So if you miss it now, not to worry about it. We're starting on the 11th of January. So now we're going to move into C, and I'm really excited about this because we're going to be focusing on how important the connections that we have are, literally to connect us into expanded consciousness. I call it sort of the connection that we have with, you could say, universal intelligence, or all that is, this realm of consciousness. Consciousness is what my spiritual journey is all about. My awareness is about my awareness of consciousness. My awareness and my breath is about how I'm connecting in with this field of consciousness, partly in the physical body, partly in my emotional body, partly in the thought forms or the thought sphere that I'm participating in. And so connection for me is a way to translate the energy that's the mystical triangle that we call Kundalini. It's that spiritual energy. Because without this sense of deep connection, we really can never move ahead in our spiritual growth and our spiritual journey. And I've noticed for myself that the more connected I feel, not only to myself and to other people and to the divine and to all that around me, the more I am not only willing and excited, but the more compelled I am and called I am to support other people in this spiritual journey. It's as if consciousness is calling me to be to give the gifts that have been given to me in the world. It's about this expanded consciousness all the time. It's about this awareness and awakening to the balancing of breath, to the movement of energy that connects us not only to ourselves, because that's a really important thing for us to have, is a deep understanding of who we are in the world as spiritual beings having a human experience. You know, it's an inside job all the time. You know, it's my inner state that determines whether or not I'm experiencing chaos in the outer. If my inner state is stressful, whatever's happening on the outer is going to show up as stressful for me. And it not only may impact, I might be stressed about a relationship, but what will happen is that same inner state, that same quality of disturbance or disconnection will be like pulling a thread in every area of my life. It will make it hard for me to create my business. It will make it difficult for me in my health and vitality. It's part of the law of the universe. We're so connected. We're all connected in such an extraordinary and powerful way. And literally the laws of consciousness, we may know them as karma, or this law of chaos and order, where if we're coming from a state, an inner state of confusion, frustration, we're going to create chaos in the outer. If we're coming from an inner state of calm, we're going to create order, balance, flow in our lives, and it's going to impact everything. So this idea of connection is more than an idea. It's what brings us clarity in our life. It's what connects us when we're able to feel that inner connection with our thoughts and our emotions and know what our temperament is. When we have that awareness about ourselves, we're much more compassionate for others. We're able to literally be present to the other in a way that when we're carrying anxiety or judgment or comparison in the mind, when we're in that divided mind, we can't be present to the other. The mind is too busy chattering away. So it's a very powerful thing for us to move into these deeper states of connection. And one of the connections that you know, I found this little tic-tac-toe, because it's heart-centered all the way. It's a heart-centered connection with ourselves, not a centering of judgment or comparison or should. It's a simple awareness of what's going on inside. And the more we have that awareness, the more opportunity we have to be present to ourselves and to be present to others and to be present to the divine. We begin to flow out of these disconnected states, these chaotic states, and move into a state of divine flow and oneness and calm. So what I'd love to do right now is I'd like to actually give you an experience of connecting more deeply to the presence. And of course, we all have a different way of knowing and understanding the presence. The presence could be God for some of you. You know, I was a unity minister, and unity is very metaphysical. It's spiritual, but not religious. We use the Bible, but it's not. It's about the story of the Bible as a journey of my story and your story, that spiritual journey that we all have. So it may be that you have a particular spiritual connection, or you maybe have none, but you're able to understand how you live in this divine matrix that's so extraordinarily wants the best and the highest for you. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to be offering you what's called a Diksha. And a Diksha is something I was initiated in 2006, in March of 2006, 21 days in India. On my first of 20 visits, I was initiated to offer this blessing. And over time, I've been initiated to offer this and a meditation that comes through my eyes. And I've traveled around the country offering these meditations to people. But right now, I just feel the blessing of being able to be present in my home and present with all of you with the Zoom camera, to be able to just offer this very simple, intentional blessing. And the blessing is very specifically designed to connect you more deeply with that indwelling presence, to connect you more deeply with the, I would say, the divine of your heart, the God of your heart, the spiritual essence of who you are, the higher power, however you see it, know it, language it. So I'm not going to, there's not really anything that you have to do to receive this blessing. I'm going to invite you to gently close your eyes. I'm going to put our screen on so that I can see as many of you as I begin this process as possible, because I like that. And then I'll be closing my eyes. You can bring your awareness and your attention initially to your crown. And maybe, Dan, you could get me off spotlight and I could just open up to see everyone. See my view gallery. There I go. Now I can see people. Awesome. So I invite you to gently close your eyes. And bring your attention to the top of your head, the crown of your head for a moment. And now slowly move your awareness into your heart. And if there's a particular request or intention that you have, a desire that's on your heart, you could bring that into your awareness. And asking very specifically to connect you deeply with the divine presence that indwells you as a magnificent being, through awareness, through breath, through the power of grace. Gently relaxing. And holding gratitude in your heart, feeling the blessing of connecting with so many powerful, extraordinary women today. Connecting in deeply with the presence that you know uniquely to be the great all that is, the divine, the God life. And gently, as you're ready, begin to feel the body and bring your awareness back into the room you're in. Maybe wiggle your toes. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. So thank you all so much for being together, for sharing. And here's that link I said I would share.